and dicks on the screen, and your classic trolling, and people saying the N word on his stream and the F word and everything else. So
I don't know. You sold me well. I think Brett Key needs to convert to Judaism.
So he lacks such self-control that just some idiots on the internet.
Well, he tried it for about a year.
So yeah, but he lacked such self-control that some idiots on the internet coming at him after a year, he couldn't handle it and he had to revert back to the way he was.
Well, he figured what's the point in putting in all this effort if this is just gonna be how it is? And you get pessimistic about shit like that if
because then the trolls won.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is when they come at you like that and you stay calm and collective and decent, then they'll quit coming at you like that. But no,
that actually makes them mad.
Yeah, it makes them mad, and then they'll quit because they're not getting the rise, and they're seeing that it's not going to work, and he knows that. But he decided.
And that's basic psychology, I thought. Yeah. Basic psychology 101.
Well, there was a minute the other day where I say the other day, but a day is like a week for me because I work nights and I sleep most of the time, so I don't actually know how long it went for or how long ago it was. But the point is that it seemed like maybe that we were returning to that for a second. And then immediately, like, as soon as I was like, fresh air, some fucker came on and it was right back to the old shit again. I was like, what the fuck? I don't know. I don't, people have accused me of being an apologist, but and I can see where they're coming from. But also, I hang out with Brett on a pretty regular basis, and the internet sees one thing and I see something else, and sometimes it's very hard for my brain to reconcile those two things. So I understand what you're saying. It's just it's confusing to me.
Come on. If he gets temporary bouts of decency, and then it doesn't take much for him to revert back the other way, then his natural state is a dick. And these momentary bouts of decency are who knows what, but his natural state is dick. And
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think anybody is irredeemable, but that's a fundamental belief that I hold pretty much exclusively, it seems, about Brett Keane.
Oh, he's still talking about me. Hey, Anti, can you hear me? Yeah. Hold on a second. Anti, if you can hear me, I'm going to be opening up a live podcast tonight. Had it scheduled for the week. I'd like you to come if you have some time.
Oh, yeah, that's tonight at 7 Central, 8 o'clock. That's right. I just looked at my calendar.
Yeah, there's going to be some good people.
Yeah, I'll be there. I've got a couple of things to do today, so I shouldn't be late. But if I am, I'll let you know ahead of time like usual.
It's all good. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that I don't think Brett Keane is all that bad.
Well, there's nothing wrong with me whatsoever. There's some people I like, some people I don't.
Right, but they're talking about your hostile behavior towards people on the internet, and I tried to explain why that is. But
you've seen me plenty of times help out people, atheists and religious alike. There's a couple of people out there that like to start trouble. It's the way the internet works. I mean, the very host of the room has people giving her shit right now as well. It doesn't mean she's a bad person because she's dealing with them.
Right, but I think that what they're saying is that there's a fundamentally different way. I don't know. It's it's handled differently. I get why you do the things you do, and I'm pretty much all right with it.
Yeah, I understand. It's all good. Well, I mean, whenever you're dealing with conflict and drama and stuff, there's no real right way to deal with people who are evil and stuff. You could try to be kind and nice, but I mean, like any natural human being out there, you're going to run out of patience with people. That's why that's the reason why I blocked Bob a long time ago. He's incapable of having a conversation without being a cock.
Well, that's the
No,
other thing that's different between us.
I wouldn't lead you. I wouldn't let you play your bullshit. I'd call you on it. I'd have conversations with you, just like I've been trying to have conversations you with in here. But when you say bullshit, I call you on it, and I don't get hostile with you about it, right? I'm calling you on the bullshit. So and you don't. And when I want to explain stuff, and you start over talking me like you did the other day, and then you muted me and everything in the hangout, it's like. I wasn't even done talking, and you just wouldn't let me talk because it disproved what you were saying. So,
Well, Bob, I'm a lot like the way you're. Bob, I'm like your wife. Sometimes I don't want to hear you.
Great. So the other thing is I like how Brett just said, well, just because somebody does something and it doesn't make them a bad person. I help people out. I give money and I help people out. But then on the opposite side, when people attack him, they're just straight up evil. It's just that, no, they have bad times and they're bad attitudes, but they're not, they're not all bad. But no, they're just, in Brett's eyes, they're straight up evil. But when Brett does it, sometimes. Bullshit.
I know it doesn't matter, but I came in to say hello to Anti and talk to Will and a few others that I actually like. But unfortunately, when you're in the room, you always have to focus your attention on me. And
okay.
No.
Real quick, I'm cutting in here. Bob, just wait a second. See, I'm gonna call you in that bullshit because you came back in here. Bob was sitting there muted, didn't say a thing to you. Will was talking to you. You were talking to Anti-Ordinary, and then you had to mention, well, evil people, and then you went, oh, like Bob. Bob didn't focus on you. Yeah, Bob didn't focus on you. You focused on Bob.
Sure. Bob hasn't said anything all week long to me over and over in 5 minutes before I left.
No,
That's what
just
he
now.
was
We're
referencing.
discussing just now. He did not say anything to you just now.
Not
Well,
just
yes,
now,
he
no.
has. Yes, he has. He even admitted it.
He admitted to having conversations with you in the past.
I understand.
We were talking about.
I get it. You just want to keep on running your mouth and start more drama. I get it.
No, we were talking about how you bait and troll for negative attention, and you just did it.
X, the thing is I have no interest in you or Bob. I'm here to talk.
Then
to
why
Will,
are you here?
And a few others. Because this isn't your room. This is Anti's room, and I enjoy talking to her and Will and a couple others. I don't like you, though.
You're going to have to talk to everyone in here if they want to talk.
I don't have to talk to you if I don't want
actually,
to.
this was established the other day. He doesn't actually have to.
Well, that's right. But if he wants to, if he doesn't want to engage in a conversation where the people he doesn't like is talking, that's fine. But if he's going to try to drive a conversation in which those people could never participate, then he needs to leave.
Well, I'm not going anywhere unless I want to, or Anti asks me to go. I will respect her.
To be fair, I was just talking about Brett, so he is the topic of conversation. So it was a little relevant.
Yeah, but then the people that Brett don't like is going to be involved in that.
Right. But what I was trying to say before I forget, because I've been holding on to it for a while, was the reason that we were talking about you, Brett, is because I was talking about you because I was like defending you or something.
Oh, I understand. Well, you don't have to tell me all that. I get it. You find yourself in this position.
Yeah, I was talking about J-Duds before that, and it's like hanging out with them and stuff like that. So it's all.
Well, I mean, Will, think about this. I'm a guy who's willing to have you over for steak, have a good ass time, congratulate you on the wedding. These guys, they won't even be there, at your funeral. They don't give a fuck.
Again.
No, I know that, but we
there you go.
Hang on, no bullshit. Hang on. 2 years ago, Brett, you probably blocked me or ignored me, but for like 2 days straight, I was heading down. I had to do a delivery a half hour from your town, and I tried. I put the word out on YouTube. I put comments in your comment section. I said, hey, Brett, I want to take you out for steak. And I heard nothing from you. I don't know. For 2 days straight, I don't know. You didn't check the comments, or you had me blocked, or whatever it was, or you just ignored me. So don't start this bullshit.
Bob, you were putting my address out on page over in the public.
I did put your address.
Bob. Why would I want you to come to my home with the way you are? You were telling people, oh, I'm wanting to go to Brett's home and stuff. I'm gonna go pick him up. You didn't like me. Why the hell would you want to sit there and go to my my home. You sounded like a psychopath. I had to
Say
block
go to
you.
your home. I didn't say go to your home. I said we can meet up and go for steak. I didn't say go to your home.
Bob, you were putting out personal information and docs. You were doxing, and that is something that would cause a lot of people to wonder.
Know your address. That's a straight up fucking lie.
Then why were you? You just said that you knew my town. You just talked about how you knew my town. You doxed me on the damn comments.
Well, you could be meaning that you reference.
Everybody knew your hometown. I heard it on the internet. You even mentioned your hometown. That's why I knew. So don't give me bullshit about I doxed you.
No, you actually put an address out there. You put an address out there, Bob.
Is Brett live streaming again? Because there's a serious echo.
I'm calling you a straight up liar. You find
no,
that,
sometimes his microphone just does that.
You find that and post that shit where I put your address out there. You go ahead and find that shit.
That was years ago, Bob, and I ended up blocking you because of it. A lot of people knew you were kind of nuts, so it is what it is.
Yeah, no. But I don't think anyone thinks Bob's nuts.
I don't give a shit what you think, Hex. He did what he did.
Oh, that's fine. I'm just defending Bob.
People seen it. Well, you can make up some shit as you want, but there were tons of people who seen that happen.
Yeah, I just don't need to make it up, though.
Get them people in the room. I want to hear from, because you're straight up lying. I never doxed anybody since I've been on this internet. So you show me evidence. Get those people. I want affidavits. I want those people coming in this room and saying I put your information out there, and I want you to find that information.
Bob, you've already made it clear in front of everybody that you hate my guts, and now you're saying, oh, I just wanted to come down and have some steak. What, are you retarded or something? Come on, people ain't falling for that shit. Hex is an idiot. He might.
So what do you think I was going to do? I was going to come down there and shoot you or some shit? What was I going to do? I'm going to throw my whole life away over your dumbass? Why would I do that?
I don't know what the hell's wrong with you, Bob. I don't know what the hell's wrong with you.
See the glorious bait. Well, I'm charging you with the responsibility of converting Brett.
Okay. Me and Jade. I think that John has actually tried once, to be honest with you.
No, J-Dubs and I, we've talked a lot of times about the view and all that. And, well, the way I see it is, if I'm going towards Christianity, then obviously I have to also accept Judaism. It's a part of the Abrahamic religion.
Yeah, we could probably have a discussion about that at some point. I know that I get called, like, I don't want to engage, no offense, guys, but I don't want to engage in a discussion about my religious affiliation too heavily in here, especially with what happened the other day. This is not something I'm in the mood for, that's all. So
I hear you there. I know the feeling.
Which I totally missed, by the way. I'm not even...
No, it's fine. It's just like, I get a bunch of people, like, what the hell is his name? Scientist Sam or something like that, who's he's Ashkenazi, but he's an atheist or something like that. I don't know. I didn't really ask him, but it seemed like that's what he was implying. And he was giving me a hard time about it. And then I think Brenda was like talking out the side of her mouth or something. And then she made like, I don't want to ascribe motive to things that might not.
Well, it's not all like that. I started talking to you about that too, and all my questions were honest and decent. I never ridiculed.
Yeah, but that's not. Yeah, but I'm not talking about you. You know what I mean?
But you're saying, yeah, some of the instances, but it's not always like that, right? People
do
want to have honest conversations about it.
Right. Yeah, no, that's fine. But I don't want to open myself up to that right this second. I don't think.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Well.
Yeah, I'm not disinterested in having that conversation with somebody who's interested in knowing what I believe. But the other thing is that Buck Melanoma especially has this idea that I like constantly talk about Judaism like ad nauseum. Well, that's really not the case. The only time that I really talk about Judaism is when I get invited onto John's podcast to talk about a specific topic from Torah Parsha or something like that, and give my thoughts as somebody who is newer to the religion, because that people find that to be an interesting perspective. And then when people grill me on it, I'm like a raging atheist or anything like that. There's others, but can't think of it right this second. But you get what I'm saying.
Well, when we go to visit Raging Atheist and do that live thing with him, his intention isn't to grill, is it? Doesn't he just want to hang out and chill?
Yeah, no, that is gonna be just a chill thing. But I'm saying in the past it's happened because it was like I won't get into it too much, but it was like you were hanging out with J-Dubs, and then now all of a sudden you're a fucking Jew now. Oh, I wonder how that happens. How much did J-Dubs pay you? You know, that's what I get. That's
Well, I like Raging. I hope that's what it's about, gaming and what he's been doing for fun and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
really
it's
in the
gonna
mood
be a
to
lot
argue.
like that. Yeah.
I'm going to say trolling out of nowhere wouldn't be justified, but you have to admit, how much did J-Dub pay you to become a Jew is kind of funny.
Yeah, it was funny the first maybe 3 or 4 times. After like the 100th, and then everywhere I go forever, not so much. I can understand like from an audience perspective, but a lot of times it's not even in like a recorded thing. So it's not even like for the CAC. It's like, well, maybe it's for their own personal CACs, but
I don't know. I think a lot of atheists do what they do on the internet for money and to sell T-shirts and all that. I think that if that reward and money wasn't there, they'd probably be off doing something else.
I gotta disagree, Brett, because I find that a lot of atheists have more issues with capitalism than non-atheists. So
Every non-believer I've ever watched, they're always trying to sell something.
I mean, it's obvious, right? The ones that are making YouTube videos and T-shirts obviously want to make money and sell T-shirts, but no one in this room except for Anti-Ordinary and you, Brett Keane, really have a channel that does anything.
Well, I don't mind if people are wanting to make some money and be able to have some good times with their families. I'm just saying it seems like what they're in for it for. The only reason they talk about God is so they can get some controversy and get more views, which get them paid more.
And why do the Christians do it? Why do the Christians got their spring teas and their GoFundMe's? And
Matt Powell's got a whole fucking enterprise based on, yeah.
Right. He also
He's
asked
making
me
a
if I'd
fucking
star in a
movie.
movie with him as well. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know about all that, but who knows?
Yeah,
Why are the Christians?
Yeah, I'm
Why are the
not saying that it's
Christians- why are the
wrong.
Christians-
I'm not saying it's wrong for an atheist or Christian to do that. If it makes you happy, fine. What I'm saying is that it gives a person a psychological necessity to continue to stick with some kind of argument towards God in order to bring views to the thing.
I don't know about the
No,
God
no,
thing,
you know
but
what?
the
No,
reason.
that's
Wait a minute. I don't know about the God thing, but the reason that TJ was doing the Brett Keane thing for the longest time and why he's not doing it now is because it was lucrative, and it would have remained lucrative had they all stayed together. But TJ just got fucking sick and tired of the kayfabe and like the mid '90s Kevin Nash fucking, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he
that-
even
and
told
it's-
me. Well, he even told me, TJ Kirk, on the interview. He said, "Brett, I don't hate you at all, man." He says, "People enjoy this. It's bread and butter. It's a business, man, and I understand that. I get it."
And like Lee Strobel, right? Lee Strobel was an atheist that became a Christian, and now he's making money hand over foot because he was an atheist that became a Christian. That's the way it works. If you want to make money, you want to make more. The Christians make more money on the internet than the atheists do, right? So if you want to make money,
I don't believe that.
You give up your atheism and become a Christian, and that would
That
make
might
more
actually be
money.
true, Brett. Think of all the mega churches, right? How I can't, like 700 Club, bonus buckets, that type of shit. I mean, those people with the fucking jets and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
you've seen these weirdo Christians. who,
Yeah, I've
like,
seen the Benny Hinn's and all that kind of. But it's not. I'm
Yeah.
not talking about. I'm not talking about it being wrong for people to get money. If they're getting money, do it, fine. But I think that it's the main motivation. That it's not about finding truth or what's right or anything.
Well,
And I'm saying it about both sides.
Okay,
Morning,
well,
how's
A lot
everybody
of the
doing today?
atheists- Yeah, no, a
Hey,
lot of
how
the
are you doing?
atheists isn't a lot of the atheists that do it isn't really to find the truth. They think they found the truth, and a lot of them were Christians, and what they're trying to do is dispel the negative things about Christianity, like homosexuals can't get married, and all this other stuff. They're
Right.
trying to give people a more secular humanist lifestyle than the religious lifestyle, which condemns more people than it actually uplifts.
Right, but what
Plenty of
Brett's saying is
homosexuals in
that
church and getting married. Go ahead, Will.
what Brett's saying is that, like, okay, let's say you're one of these people and you've built up an audience. If you stop thinking, like, if you stop believing in the thing that's making you money and gained you an audience in the first place, there's a real fear to walk that back, even if you don't believe that that's morally right to do anymore. So you're hesitant to, like, walk back your bullshit because it could
Yeah.
fuck up your entire financial situation forever.
Yeah, Thunderfoot's a perfect example. He just wanted to primarily do science videos, and then he started doing a few religious. Noticed his views go up. He started bringing in a really shitty, dumb audience, and then he went back to science. Things are more content for him now. I'm happy for Thunderfoot.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
that's
I know
what I
Christians
think.
started watching his show. The Christians started watching Thunderfoot's show, and that's what it shitty the audience. See, Brett, it's comments like that, right? Oh, the shitty, ignorant, the shitty, dumb audience. When he started doing it, you imply that because more atheists started watching it because it was Christian. That's what. And you wonder why people treat you like shit.
Well, there's certain people out there that are looking for drama and controversy. They're the bottom of the barrel type of people. When he's doing his science videos, he's going to get the more intelligent people that actually want to learn something. That's just the way it is on the internet.
That's what you do.
Name one
You don't
person
preach
that's
God.
doing
You don't
that's
preach
that's looking
God.
for controversy and
Well,
Who
the
does
you
Christian-
don't preach, you
they're
don't
still
go out and
doing
preach
that.
God. You're not preaching the Bible and preaching God and preaching religion. Your videos are against atheists. Pretty much every video you make is against atheists.
I got over 1,000
shit.
videos about God. I got tons of videos about God. Hell, I even did some church phone calls talking to preachers and all that kind of stuff. So
That's
Yeah,
actually true. That he's done some, like, old school Brett Keane call of church things that are actually I like.
have you
anyway.
done
It's
have you
pretty-
done new ones, Brett, talking to the pastors and such?
Yeah, those are
Yeah.
brand new. There's 2 or 3 of them over there where he asks some questions that they just don't have answers to. They're pretty
Wait.
I
good.
didn't say.
Well, no, I mean
didn't
where
say
they
he
actually
didn't-
have
I didn't say
answers.
he
Like, are
didn't
you
do any
asking
Christian content.
Christians, putting them in a position where they can actually answer, so that they
Yeah, like one lady
in the
was like,
Christian-
"Well, one lady was like, "Well, I can't answer your question, but let me put you through to somebody who does, or who can rather." And then he got voicemailed. But
No, I'm asking, are you promoting Christianity, Brad, by talking with pastors who actually defend the Christian faith that really can? Have you done any of that?
yeah, when I call people, I'm hoping that they'll actually have some answers for some of the different discussion. Some of it I already have my own ideas and I feel that there's answers for. But I find when I talk to, whether it's an atheist or a religious person, by the way, I've called atheist organizations too if people are interested, and I find people have all kinds of different ideas and things. It's interesting, but you do get your
But
occasional "I don't know, I'm not sure" kind of thing. But
You
it
do-
is what it is.
Well, wait a minute. Wait, though, you do realize, right? If you call a church that's more evangelical and particularly a fundamentally based church, and you talk with a pastor, you're going to get the answers you want, right? You know that.
They sometimes they have different views and ideas than myself, but I just figure, look,
Yeah,
they're either
but
going to know the
if-
answer or they won't.
Answers, you have to talk with somebody who actually studies the Bible, unless of course you're okay with calling a relatively liberal church, and then they give you liberal answers. I mean, if you're okay with that, that's fine too. But if you're looking for absolute biblical yes or no kind of answers, you got to call the right kind of church.
The right kind of church.
well, do you have a
question-
recommendation? 'Cause
now,
I'd like to see that.
Guys, when I call these folks, I'm not asking like, wow, that sounds like Grand Theft Auto over there, but I'm asking, I think, pretty basic questions that are not things that are going to knock Christians or atheists over. I don't feel like it's
What I mean is, what kind of churches are you calling? Like the name, what kind of denomination do you call, and what kind of answers are you asking, or what kind of questions are you asking?
He called.
Go ahead.
He called some. He called some weird denomination that are Christians but also Jews simultaneously. I think they call themselves Messianic. If I'm not
Okay,
mistaken,
Messianic Jews. So then, what did you ask him about? And what?
I
What was
forget
it?
what he asked.
Jesus,
Which
or
one?
who did you actually call?
It was Curie called us or
Yes,
something.
Jews for Jews.
We got into kind of a discussion about why is it that the Jews see the Old Testament as from God, but why is it so difficult for them to believe that the Jews of the New were telling the truth? Where's the problem?
So you're saying why did Jews in general, or you're talking Jews for Jesus?
Okay, so he was asking
No, I'm asking
a person from Jews for Jesus why Jews why Jews take the word of Jews in the Old Testament, but why they don't take the word of Jews in the New Testament. So the people
because
in
they
the
felt
Testament
that he was supposed to come as a warrior, right? And that didn't happen, so they don't accept it. I mean, I think
not Jews external of the Bible, the characters in the Bible that are Jews.
I
Yeah.
wait.
Like,
I'm a little. Oh, you're saying why do they accept the Old Testament Jews but not the New Testament Jews?
yeah,
Bruce,
the word
Bruce,
of the
I have
people.
to point out something. When I call any church or any atheist organization out there, I don't have this mindset that they're going to say exactly what I figure they're going to say. I always keep it open that, hey, they might have their own reasons. There might be some other kind of ideas why it is they think the way they do. That's what I keep in mind when I make the calls.
But I mean, when you were calling Jews for Jesus, I mean, what were you looking for? Do you realize what do you think Jews for Jesus actually stand for? What did you come about after this? I mean, how did your mind change? Like what did you realize about Jews for Jesus, or what's your thought on them at this point?
Well, that's why I was calling to ask them and talk to them, find out what their views and ideas were. Unfortunately, the woman continued to tell me she wasn't really sure how to answer things, so she said she'll put me through to a rabbi. And this is where Will told you. They put me through to a voicemail. Now, I have left my name and number and all that. I went ahead and called back. I didn't want to do that while recording my video, but I'll be more than happy to do a series.
I mean, okay, I'll be quite honest. I have never had a problem talking with people at Jews for Jesus, and I've spoken with them quite a few times over the years and never had any difficulty at all talking with them. In fact, I even spoke with the president of Jews for Jesus at one time. No trouble, no problems at all.
Well, I didn't get any trouble either.
I didn't have any trouble getting to speak with him, is my point. It was very easy. And actually,
she made it seem like she thought the guy
was.
She made it seem like she thought the guy was in her office, and then was in his office rather, and then it went to voicemail. It wasn't like that. She ghosted Brett.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, I feel bad that it happened that way. I mean, for me, I always thought Jews for Jesus were basically they go out and they speak and they visit like different. Particularly evangelical type churches, and they do that. I mean, they think pretty much like basic Christians, but they are Messianic Jewish, but they're not like way off or anything, But I mean, unless I guess that's what I'm trying to figure is like, were you just trying to stump them, or what were you trying to figure out? Or it's amazing you couldn't talk with them, because I never had any trouble talking with someone at Jews for Jesus and even getting to speak with the president and such,
I heard Jews for Jesus in a comedy bit once, and I thought it was like a joke. I didn't know it was a real thing. And then when Brett called Jews for Jesus, I realized that, holy shit, this is like a real thing. And then,
they definitely go out and witness a lot. They do. They're pretty active. Have been for many years.
Unless Brett remembers the questions, I guess you could ask Brett what questions he asked her. Or, I mean, is the video still up on Brett's,
Oh, yeah, it's
YouTube
still up.
page,
It's...
All right.
Well, guys, I run a... Well, I was going to give you guys the information on how to look at that. I have a BitTube page. I put all my more hardcore, interesting stuff like that over on my BitTube page because YouTube's full of censorship.
I mean, but if you want to know something about it,
well, post
I mean, if you actually
can you post links?
I mean, if you actually,
I think there's a room in there where It's called Promote Yourself or something. I think there's one of those rooms.
Yeah,
I-
self promotion.
I was gonna
Go
say
up there to promote
they
yourself and post
restructured
it.
it.
Are there things in particular though that you'd like to know about Jews for Jesus? In
Well, the
relation
thing is,
to-
Bruce, I didn't know anything about them to begin with. I called so they could tell me about themselves and explain it in their own way. I had nothing against them. I wasn't trying to embarrass them in any way. I was interested in why they think the way they do.
Do you remember
Oh.
what question you asked them?
That one question in particular I remember because it made up the bulk of the conversation, but I can't remember offhand. Not only that, but I've seen the other one or two of them that he's done so far, and I feel like I'm conflating one with the other two when I think about them in my mind. So I don't know. I guess we'd have to like pull up the video and watch it again because I honestly don't. I know Brett's done a couple of things since then too.
Yeah, I was
so.
kind of figuring now if there's something like I guess out of curiosity, what's your thought of Jews for Jesus at this point as far as salvation and that kind of thing? What would you think?
Who, me or Will?
Well, you're the one to talk with him, right, Brett?
Yeah, but it wasn't a super long conversation on that one. The woman seemed like she was having a lot of difficulty with things, and then she ended up passing me over. But I'm sure if I call back, I'll probably end up getting a hold of somebody that's a little bit more, prepared for a conversation. She seemed like she was.
Secretaries often aren't really quite, that's not really their job, generally speaking, a secretary. You know what I mean?
I don't know if it was a secretary or not. She just said Jews for Jesus, and we went into our conversation.
Okay.
Anytime that
Yeah,
I've called a
well-
religious organization, I usually get the parishioners rectory, and I ordinarily don't get a secretary or anything. So I assumed that she was somebody who was, I don't know, was like one of these 1-800 hotlines where they're ready and they got their Bible out or whatever. So
Well,
if they do have secretaries
it
up
is a
front.
huge organization, but if you're calling the headquarters, it is hard to say. I mean,
Oh,
the
okay.
central office. I mean, where did you call exactly? I mean, did you call where they're located? Did you ask who they were? I mean, I don't know. It is tough to say, I guess.
Yeah.
But
I've been also,
Oh,
Will, I've been trying to get a hold of that damn just experience, but they have you sit there forever, and sometimes they'll never get around to picking up. So I keep
Isn't that
trying
like a
to get
live
this
show or
experience.
something?
Yeah, I called a long time ago and got through and was talking to some egghead and everything, and he kept
Oh,
on claiming he wasn't able to hear me, but the whole thing was recorded on both ends. You could hear me just fine. I think they
Yeah,
were
that's
showing
Matt
something there.
Dillahunty, right?
Not on that specific one. I have
Oh.
repeatedly tried in the past to talk to Matt Dillahunty, but he's one of them type of atheists where he feels like he's too important to talk to people. So it's rough.
did you ever call Dr.
I
Jesus?
I remember that video when you called in, and what the problem was is they kept getting feedback because you were recording it on your end, and they kept getting feedback, so it was hard to understand your questions and talk to you because they kept hearing themselves. And when they asked you to stop recording and turn it off, you said, "Okay, I'll fix that," but then you didn't. And just like now, I can hear myself in your background. So
Yeah. Okay.
they kept hearing that, and then they said, and then finally they got tired of it because you wouldn't comply with them and turn it off, and they were having a hard time talking to you, so they hung up on you. Yeah, I remember that.
Well, I've got it recorded. Everybody was. I had a whole bunch of people in the room with me at the same time I was doing it, and they seen that I was doing just fine on my end. I don't know what their problem was.
I am wondering, suppose you were to call Dr. Jesus, like what kind of conversation do you think you'd have there?
Depends who's Dr. Jesus. I don't know everybody that's from your area, man.
My area. That's not here. I don't know where he's at exactly. I've been searching. Kind of. I at one time I talked with him, but kind of a one-way communication. And when it came back the other way, sometimes it was unfortunately wrong. That gave me difficulty.
Yeah, I've discovered usually if I want a really long discussion, if I call Pentecostals or Baptists, they get irritated, even if the questions are really simple. But if I call like Catholics or Lutheran and everything, seems like they really enjoy a big, long, in-depth conversation. Mormons too, I noticed.
Oh yeah, well they're going to try to drag you in too, but the I don't know how the Catholics deal with it. They probably just enjoy talking about life, I guess, and their ideas about God and such, right?
Yeah.
But Pentecostal, maybe they feel like, especially as if you were an atheist at the time when you did that, they probably just thought you were setting them up to smack them over the head, you know?
Yeah. Well, when I called the Pentecostals, it was kind of an intense conversation back. I was asking them, how do they go about learning how to do the language of the tongues and all that kind of stuff? And it's just like, so how are you able to differentiate between incoherent babble and what you're actually doing? How do you know the person's doing that? So, I mean, they got a little irritated, but I thought it was a valid question.
Sure. But yeah, they are going to get frustrated because those are difficult things to answer. I'll tell you the best place to start is probably she bought a Honda. Thing.
Who shot a Honda?
No, she bought a Honda. She bought a Honda. She bought a Honda out of Yamaha.
Oh, who bought them a Honda?
She bought a Honda and then bought a Yamaha. And like if you're into motorcycles, you could finish it up with could have been a Beamer. So then you have she bought a Honda, had a Yamaha, could have been a Beamer. It works quite, yeah. It's just motorcycle talk,
Bruce, have you ever thought about doing that? You good with electronical stuff and music equipment. You ever thought about making calls, make some videos of it?
What? No, I used to do prank phone calls when I was a kid. We had one lady, a friend of mine, a strange guy. His name was Rick Ream. Anyhow, the hell. He could call people and shit. And he had one lady called up, said he was working for a grocery store, and he wanted to know whether they like the twisty baggy ties on the bread or the clip-on baggies, And eventually he had her talking about all kinds of, it was like 2-3 in the morning. He had her talking about all kinds of freaking toys and stuff and what she liked and everything. And yeah, it was amazing. That he's a drummer in that Poison band. It's no wonder he made it. I mean, he could call anybody up in the middle of the night nearly and eventually end up in a conversation.
Yeah, I don't really consider what I'm doing as pranking, though. If the person ends up saying something silly, it's not as though it's scripted or anything. Just talking to people. Some people say weird shit.
Oh, I mean, like, I mean, why would I do that, though? I mean, I didn't do, oh, shit, I was a kid. Anyhow, the thing is, though, now that I'm, like, morbidly old or something, I don't have a drive to, call people and, you know what I mean, bust on their religion and stuff. I don't know why.
Well, don't call with the want to bash or do anything like that. That's not what I do. When I call and I ask questions, the only way I'll be able to find the motivation, energy to do it is if I really want to understand where they're coming from. Goodness, that's how I'm able to do what I do.
Yeah, right. But why would I record it for everybody else to hear? I mean, honest to goodness, if you really want to know, I've talked to like tons and tons of pastors in my life, like in depth, and rabbis and all kinds of stuff. I even called the Vatican once, I mean, I've done that because I wanted to know things, and there was no internet back then, right? There wasn't any internet, and nobody to sit and play the videos back so everybody could laugh and shit. I just wanted to know.
Right. Well, that's one of the things about Christians is they do like the idea of the information message getting out there. So if they can get it out there any way they can, they're going to do it.
Yeah, as long as you're asking honest questions because you really, really want to know, and you're really studying. And I think most people respect that, even if you disagree, if you're trying to learn. And I never had difficulties with that. Like I said, I could even call the Vatican because I wanted to know about marriage and stuff, for priests and such, how they looked at it. And it's not like it was hard to find books and stuff and find information that was accurate. I could call Messianic, like I said, Jews for Jesus. You could call all kinds of Pentecostal things. Whoever you wanted to call and learn about, and those people were willing to talk with you.
Yeah, I put that call video you made to the AXP. I put that call video in General VC and in video suggestions. So if anybody wants to watch the video call, me and Brett were just talking about it. It's in there.
Yeah, I got a whole lot of other videos got uploaded a bit too. But yeah, a while back, I had it was probably about 6-7 years ago. Ended up calling NASA and had a really interesting conversation with them about do they actually have religious people? Is there an issue with having religious people be astronauts and all that? And they said, oh, a lot of us up here believe in God and that. And we feel like God has given us great gift and ability to be able to explore space and all that. I thought that was pretty cool.
That'd be pretty cool, yeah. Yeah, you could ask them if the Earth is really flat or if they're working with the Illuminati and shit, you know. And
well, with flat earthers, I mean, I could talk to 1,000 people up at NASA working for NASA. Flat earther won't believe. They'll just simply say, oh, they're all lying. They're all, underground with the Illuminati, stirring a witch's cauldron and shit. You can't, there's nothing you can do. You can't give them pictures, images, anything. They'll just say, nope.
Yeah.
That's because they don't understand the CGI part of it. They think CGI means fake. I mean, their phone can do CGI. When they take a panoramic picture, like in the older phones, you'd have to take like 3 separate pictures, and then your phone would sew them together. That's CGI. That's cute computer-generated image. So.
Yeah, I've tried to get flat earthers on my podcast. I got a couple of them a while back, but they seem very aggressive. Like I was talking to this one guy and I said, sir, I would like to understand why you have the feelings you do. Come on my live podcast and I will let you make your position known. I'm not going to yell at you or anything like that. Just talk about it. And he called me the N word and told me a certain instruction on how I can kill myself. And I was like, wow, that's pretty rough, man. Over the planet, really? Usually I have to work harder to get that kind of love.
I would like to be a flat earther, but I lack faith.
That's pretty good, Bruce. Well, Bruce, I'll be right back. I need a cigarette, man. Be right.
Okay. Let's call the World Health Organization and figure out whether it's just a big scam or not. Hell. Trolling us.
So what do you believe in these days, Bruce?
What's that?
So what do you believe in these days?
I don't know. I was talking about it the other night. Like, I figure there's probably a God. That's just my guess. Some sort. I don't claim to understand it. It's my thought. And while they're arguing about it,
Oh, that's cool. I used to believe in a God. I just don't anymore. I don't think there are any gods.
maybe not. And there might be.
Yeah, there might be, there might be unicorns and it might be pink fairies too, but
Unicorns that wouldn't have anything to do with nothing becoming something.
Well, it was never nothing, right? I don't believe, even the scientists don't believe it was nothing. They believe it was this fine point of whatever, and it expanded.
I think scientists disagree on that, from what I've seen. And for instance, when all the black holes, whatever, everything draws everything together, the end of time as we know it, what the scientists say that becomes?
When they use nothing, they mean like quickly. Like if you hold your hand out and say there's nothing in my hand, there's still air and particles and molecules. There's still something there, but that's what they mean by nothing. I mean, it's not like an absolute nothing.
Okay, what will exist when the universe, everything we know, even its expansion and everything, does it start to eventually start to pull together with all the black holes and everything pulling it and sucking it in? And doesn't that eventually just the idea isn't it that eventually just disappears? Or am I wrong?
No, I don't think anything just completely disappear. I think maybe it all compresses into this fine point, and then there's another expansion. The universe recycles itself.
Sure.
That's me going on absolutely no scientific data and reading no scientific papers. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. The last couple of things I looked at, there was this idea that it would eventually totally, whatever nothingness is, I have no idea. I don't know. Nobody ever. It is hard to comprehend. I think time if time is eternal and it goes on forever and it always existed, that's pretty hard to understand too, though.
Well, yeah, but that's what God's supposed to be, right? I mean, you want to posit this. You think it's hard for stuff to come from nothing and an eternal thing, but then God has to be eternal, and God would have to create everything. So God would have to be more magical, more mysterious than the nature itself, because God would have to create nature. But God, and the universe, where would he get all the materials from? Where would he get everything from to do it? He would just pop them out of nothing, because he's an immaterial being. There's nothing material about God. He's just a mind of some spirit or essence or something. So there's nothing material there, and he somehow
I get your point, but at least if there was some kind of mindset, some type of something energy source of something that had some odd way to almost think, whatever the deal is, to me it just makes a little more sense of some form of energy, something that always existed, that started things rolling, just got things moving. I don't know. I'm not sure. It's just my idea.
Well, that's just nature. That's what nature is. I mean, because you can look at it this way: what created God, right? There had to be something that created God.
Not if you see it out. Not if we're looking outside of time, as we understand time.
How can anything exist out of time? If he's outside of time, that means there's no time. There's no change. There's no.
We understand time. We understand the Big Bang, or maybe the lack thereof, and something happened from nothing, as we best understand nothing. Or am I wrong in that?
No, I mean they say it came from a singularity, so it's not a nothing. There was something.
Okay, so what's a singularity?
They don't know.
Well, okay, what is a singularity? What is a singularity?
Somebody who understands. I don't know. You have to ask somebody.
Is it lasting in any type of anything, or is the singularity absolutely nothing? I don't know.
I don't know. You have to ask somebody who knows what a singularity is. I don't know.
Maybe that's God.
I just joined, guys. What's the current topic?
A singularity is where.
Yeah. No. Oh, hang on. Just let them know what we're talking. The conversation is everything from nothing, or God created everything.
Oh, right, okay.
What makes better sense? Again.
Oh, I think it was a random event.
And Bruce thinks that a God created everything is better than everything just existing.
And I'm not exactly wording it that way either.
Look, I have someone.
Not exactly, but yeah, not exactly.
Oh,
but
no, I'm saying I think something started put things in order. That's my wild guess. That doesn't mean I'm right. I'm just saying that what makes sense to me. It's some type of something beyond just nothing.
I think Bob said that it's just nature, and I think that an omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent God is basically like a self-correcting system, right? It can't make a mistake, and I think that that's basically just nature, right? Because how can an omniscient being really make any decisions if he knows everything that's going to happen? I don't see a difference between that and nature.
I don't know.
Maybe I'm not explaining it very well, but that's
I
what
mean,
I think.
it's interesting. I mean, to think that. I mean, I know it's the argument of the God of the gaps, but I'm not trying to fill every gap. I'm just talking about how things started, and trying to understand what nothing would be, or is you were saying something at the very beginning. There was something that always existed, or what's the thought on that?
Well, I'm not a scientist, but from my understanding, there was a very a singularity basically, and that the Big Bang caused it.
What is this? What is a singularity?
Well, I mean, from what I understand, it was a very dense point. I'd have to look it up to give a decent explanation. If someone else could explain it, then that would be better.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to look, said just the biggest gap, but I'm going to certainly look at the biggest gap because that's the most confusing to anybody questioning, I think. I think it's the most kind of like, wow, how did this happen?
So, I mean, you've heard the theme song to the Big Bang Theory show, right? It was 14 billion years ago. It was in a hot, dense state. Expansion started way up. I'm using a theme song to explain it.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
Look, I like Watchmen, right? And you know who Dr. Manhattan is?
What?
Do you know who Dr. Manhattan is?
I'm sorry,
Watchmen.
Not watching.
Manhattan is basically an omnipotent being, right? And he can see the future. And they were talking about, it's basically about determinism and how he can not really make any choices because he knows exactly what's going to happen. And I think it's a similar thing with an omniscient God or omnipotent God.
But this is sort of, isn't this like sort of made up? What are you talking about? Like, it sounds like something that's sort of a show or something.
Yeah, but it's about determinism.
Determinism? Well, determinism, yeah, that's confusing to me because some people treat it as though there is some kind of God and you could go in time ahead and you would see everything happening, or you just, and then there's other people that seem to just think that we just simply react to what happens around us, and then also in relation to our genetic makeup, and that's why we're going to make certain decisions. But then there does seem to be a tie with this kind of thing, like everything's predestined, kind of. Which I realize then you need a deity or something, but still it's similar depending on how people explain it.
So let's say. Sorry, just I'll step back after this. Just say you're an omniscient person, being, right, and you know exactly what's going to happen. No matter what choices you make, you know what's going to happen. So, can you really make a choice in that instance?
I'm losing some of what you're saying. Is cutting off and on somehow.
I said, all right, I'll reset. On you go.
Yeah, so the best way to describe singularity as far as physics is it's a point where which the mathematics that we have to describe the natural universe, it kind of breaks down, right? So we have different equations that can describe like just the basic gravity that kind of exists here on this planet, right? So when you talk about the beginning of the known, actually not even known, the entire universe, the mathematics that we would normally use to describe the governing forces seems to hit an infinitesimal set of value. And so because we don't actually deal with real infinites, like conceptually we'll deal with infinites, but we're talking about an actual infinite, we need something else to try and describe that particular phenomena. So the singularity is where the mathematics breaks down.
You mean at the earlier stage we can understand something existed and moved on to something else. Is that where you're at?
Somewhat, yeah, because that's why we can't really describe what happened before Planck time, right? That's because we don't have any real way to observe that, or nor do we have the mathematics to try and encapsulate that.
Okay. Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. You're saying that there's no actual infinite thing. Like conceptually, you shouldn't be able to count from 1 to 2 because there's an infinite number of integers in between those two numbers, hypothetically.
Well, you could slice it infinitely, and you'd never get to 2. But we can conceptually infinites exist, but an actual infinite is something that you just hard to kind of observe an actual infinite.
It's hard to go back in time before anything ever existed. I mean, what's there to look at? Like, I don't think it's pretty hard for science, if it, whatever that is, or how it exists, or right.
I mean, inferences. We can view things that happened in the past based on what we have now and draw inferences, but it just depends on what we're looking and what type of inferences we're trying to draw.
But are you familiar with the idea? I just want to ask Drag something real quick. Are you familiar with that idea? And I've seen it now a few times where they're explaining that, I don't know, billions and trillions, whatever years it would be away, that everything would actually disappear as we know it. Eventually, it would just break down to nothing.
Oh, heat death.
You heard of that?
Yeah, heat death.
Yeah. Interesting concept, and when I thought about it, I thought, well, it's pretty lonely, but maybe that's similar, if that's actually the case, to what it's been like before existence as we know began. I don't know.
Some people say that'll, when we reach heat death, then everything will collapse back in on itself and restart again. I mean, that's one of the postulations. I don't really follow physics since that's not my field, but that's one of the things people toss around.
Does it start again, or is it actually just totally destroyed and there's nothing there?
You can't destroy. No, you can't destroy energy and matter.
Don't some Christians say that God will prevent heat death of the universe?
I've not heard that, but that's pretty funny.
But perhaps not Christians specifically, but religious folks, maybe young Earth creationists. I'm sure I've heard that from like Hovind or Ken Ham or someone like that.
Yeah, but that's not like a miraculous claim. I mean, Christians will make claims that God will protect from global warming. They make claims that God will protect people getting diseases. They make claims that that God will do a lot of these things. But when you assert something like as a just so story without actually having to attribute any type of like mechanism of action, really, of how this is possible, it's really just a vacuous claim. And this is the thing I wanted to say with Bruce as well, is that the problem that I find with Christianity in this state is that when you're looking at something like a story like a creation, you have to assert it as a brute fact. Like this is just the way it is. There's no antecedent cause or reason or anything that would exist prior to a God existing. He just exists. No reason, no explanation, no nothing for it. Like, all you have to do is just make the claim a God exists, and you don't even have to justify it if you believe that he exists as just a brute fact. But that becomes unsatisfactory, because like, why would you accept that? In this claim is that, listen, I can assert something merely as a brute fact and not have to worry about any of this other stuff. But if somebody was to put like forward a similar example in describing that maybe there's just some type of natural law to the universe, or maybe that the universe itself exists as just a brute fact, that becomes automatically unsatisfactory.
I guess the law of thermodynamics would say that it can't just disappear. Yet oddly though, I've heard people that seem scientific to me saying that it is possible given enough time. I don't know. It seems hard to believe for me too, but before time started and everything as we know it, I don't think it's crazy. I am probably hanging on to that from my observation, obviously, of Christianity, but then a whole lot of other religions. But then you could say they're all nuts too, though. Maybe they are. but I don't think
like,
it's.
just think about it like that way, like the way you talk about it before time. Like what does it mean for something to exist before time? Because to say that something happens before time itself is to posit that there's a temporal state in which time doesn't exist. So you still have to you're using speech that requires there to be a time to say that something existed before time. It just becomes like incoherent.
Well,
there's something that I always wondered.
Then what is the singularity exactly? And was there anything before the singularity? Was the singularity something that always existed? What about that?
Well, I mean, I think a singularity is like Drake says, it's like where our understanding of certain mathematical concepts or certain laws and stuff just break down. They become, like you say, kind of incoherent at that point in time.
Okay, so maybe there's some things that are incoherent to us that we just don't understand. So people throw the word God in there and say, "Yeah, I guess he always existed."
That's where you get back to that problem where I said that now you just have to assert something as a brute fact, and when you assert, like I said, when you assert it with a brute fact without any type of antecedent reason or justification or anything like for that, like what's to stop you from literally positing anything at that point in time? Because you're by definition putting forward something existing as a brute fact that would have no need for a justification. So like any person who doesn't believe in a god could just simply assert that some non-god related justification exists as a brute fact, and they don't need to substantiate where this came from or how this operates or any mechanisms of this any more than the religious person would have to do for their explanation of God. So it now just becomes you're just two different people asserting just so stories, and then you can just take a look at which one seems more rational, whether or not it's like just there's just some mechanism of action that exists, or that there exists some type of entity that there's conscious floating in nowhere at no time that at one moment decided, I'm just going to snap my fingers and magic everything into existence.
Well, there would be fingers snapping we don't understand, of course, but I don't know.
I've also heard
mute my notification. Sorry about that.
I've got
some Christians are trying to, they say that we don't know what 96% of the universe is, like dark matter and dark energy. I've heard some Christians assert that could be God, right? Sorry, not Christians, just deists, right? People that believe in a superior being, saying that could be God, just because we don't know what it is. I think it's a similar thing with what was before the Big Bang, right? And then God snapping it into existence. That could have been God.
I agree with that 100%. I think the issue with religion, in that sense, as it relates to science, it's more caught up in people who don't really understand exactly what's kind of being alluded to. Because of course, when you're talking religion, you're talking symbolically, right? Just like if you were to explain some kind of phenomena through mathematics, you're basically still talking in symbolism.
As far as I know, because the universe is expanding, eventually, it'll become so you can't even see stars in your own galaxy. It will become a black void, basically nothing there. That's my understanding anyway of the universe expanding.
So I guess the idea, though, is that if being there's a lot we don't understand and some things we do understand, if somebody inserts God as always being there, it's just sort of an assertion that obviously we don't know one way or another whether it's absolutely true. So therefore, it does seem, I get the idea of not accepting it, but just totally throw the idea out. I'm not sure that's, at least to me, it doesn't seem logical.
I don't think
it's not that it's illogical or that the point that I was trying to bring up, that when you want to assert something as a brute fact, that you become kind of like picking and choosing of what brute fact it is that you want to assert at the onset. As the antecedent reason for why there's something rather than nothing. If we're already getting to the stage where we can accept that something exists as a brute fact, what is it that you're using to disqualify any non-God, rationality? Like it just seems like at this point in time that you're just picking the option that you think works best, or the one that you want to be true. When like this is one of the things I was talking about yesterday. When you can do kind of a an abductive kind of inference over what makes more sense to that point in time. And I would say that having to posit some type of transcendental consciousness, that disembodied mind that exists at, like I said, at no time, at no place, because these things aren't even concepts that are there yet, makes very little sense compared to the option of asserting that it probably wasn't that.
Yeah, but if you assert it probably wasn't that, you're going to basically insert anything but God. So anything but God could be aliens. Anything but God could be multiverses that just keep recycling itself, and it's an infinite regression. Anything but God could be a whole bunch of things that maybe we can't even fathom yet. So like I don't think that anything but God is less complicated than God. Like when you were trying to play Occam's razor, you stopped short, because anything but God sounds kind of complex to me.
Well, it's kind of the whole thing that's very complex, on both sides. No matter how you slice it, it's a complicated thing we're talking about here.
Right.
The start or continuation of existence and being itself.
Yeah, I would say that
what would you posit?
anything
What
that
would you posit, Sokka? Like, have you ever thought like what like do you just stop short and you're just like, I don't know? Or do you ever like posit like the idea? Do you think like
Well,
infinite regress?
Well,
personally,
so in
I'm
this case,
assuming
like I would say that I would say that it makes more sense to assert that the universe exists as a brute fact, rather than having to assert that there's a concept of consciousness that doesn't relate to any type of consciousness that we have any type of reference for in reality, that that exists. Like, so just presented those two options, one between a certain like this type of consciousness that somehow exists absent a type of physical form, that this consciousness that exists in timeless space. Like, I mean, there's these we can posit this consciousness, but it's really what we're doing is we're applying a term. We're using the term consciousness because it sounds kind of familiar and it describes an aspect of God, but it really doesn't actually possess any type of details that we would recognize or compare to consciousness as we understand it. So it's just like what I'm saying is that. Okay, thank you, sweetheart. I would say that it's less likely the case that some being exists that possesses these very specific. Oh shoot, I lost what I was saying there. No, I'm just saying that having to appeal to some type of infinite, existing consciousness out there just doesn't seem like a more rational position. I think that it actually has to make a lot more assumptions.
Like for a while it was debated that black holes, whether they existed or not, but people could see the results of a black hole, whether it existed. And then what happens when something's sucked into a black hole is like really just a theory, like what's actually happening. But we know that something like that exists. Like sometimes I don't think we have to know the ins and outs of how it works to know that there might be something there, if that makes sense.
But I think it's productive to have plans to take steps forward to at least prove it. And that's where I guess I kind of agree with what he was saying before, is that if we are going to test this hypothesis, right, that there is some kind of ultimate cosmic creator behind all of this, what experiments, how could we really test that to prove it? And that's something that often, religious people, not even religious people, I shouldn't box people in, but you know what I mean? Like people who kind of rely on their beliefs, their predetermined beliefs, shy away from that. There's no need to prove that God exists because I have faith. Well, but it would benefit a lot of people if you could prove it, right? So let's at least try and.
I don't know if God existing is faith, right? So God existing is just a default position, just like God not existing is a default position. I think both of them are defaults. Like either you think that there's some sort of ordered mind that's created things and then also allows for this start of things in motion, or you don't have enough proof for it and you can't say either way, or you're saying no. And I think those are all kind of default positions. So deism considers itself more of a default position that doesn't require faith. A faith-based position is when you say, I know this creator, I know who he is, and this is what he does.
I was thinking, like with dark matter, I think a lot of people probably think that dark matter is like actually a matter. Am I wrong on that idea, or what?
I think it's a
I mean, dark matter isn't matter, and dark energy isn't energy. Like, those are placeholder terms that describe other things.
And so, what I think is interesting, though, is that I know some people believe that it's like a gravity that actually holds things together. Your planetary system and such, and beyond whatever, it holds things together. And I thought that was interesting. I have to admit, it is weird to me that when I look in the Bible, I know it. There goes my mind again. But the idea, though, in the Bible, though, it talks about God that holds all things together. And I went, strange. Yeah, I don't know. Odd.
Yeah, it's almost as if it's like a metaphor, right, for dark matter, right?
Right.
All literal, like we have interpreted it to be.
Oh.
Bruce, are you saying that God is the universe?
I wouldn't. Yes,
I'm not making any kind of like generalized statement about it. What I'm saying is, if you look at religion and you look at what science is discovering, you could see how these things actually interplay. But you can also see how people get caught up in trying to like drive some kind of political ideation, some kind of like, you know what I mean? Some kind of way to manipulate and control other people and how they think. And so it makes sense that we haven't realized yet these are two subjects talking about the same things.
Sokka, have you held
So when you get to the okay, sorry, what were you saying there, Holly?
I just was curious. Have you ever held a theistic belief? I wasn't sure if you have.
No.
What?
No, I have not.
Okay, I was curious, because I had a feeling you have never, so I was just wondering. Anyway, I gotta go. Lurker, I did throw you out, just so I could talk because you do not talk, and I really wanted to talk. You can come in, but if somebody wants to talk, they're gonna always get precedence over the people that lurk. So, anyway, I gotta go.
Have a good one. Yeah, I'm gonna roll too. Got to get some stuff. Thanks for having me, allowing me in here to yammer and try to figure out what I don't know. All right, see you, man. Have a good day.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing that Holy Spackle kind of brought up there that actually I want to kind of address with her one day, but it is that this idea that of like a deistic universe, and or even this almost like pantheistic idea of the universe, where the universe itself almost becomes synonymous with the term God. And the question that I have then is that, well, what are the what's a defining characteristic of such a being that separates itself from the universe itself? So we could talk about, whether or not, that when they refer to the universe, that they are, also using that term synonymously with describing what a god is. But when I use the term universe, obviously, I'm not talking about God. So, besides just all the traits that the universe has, what are the other qualifiers or descriptors of the universe that makes it more godlike than just talking about the universe itself? And I haven't really got an answer to that.
You got me with that one.
So, Jesus was a historical figure. Prove me wrong.
I don't know. Probably, in some sense, he was either a historical figure or, like a historical figure that also was a compilation of other figures or, wise sage-like people that existed at that time. I mean, it's entirely possible that at least there was a figure that this Jesus guy was based off of.
Why do you think it's highly? Why do you think it's highly possible?
I think that there's enough, even secular kind of information out there that talks about this, this cult of kind of, of followers of this guy at that time frame.
But no, if I'm not mistaken, no one wrote about Jesus until long after?
Yeah, I mean, like
long after he was dead and gone, and it was like history to them, the people that were writing it at the time.
Well, I mean, I think that the earliest Gospels, I think that the most kind of liberal kind of viewpoint on them is 70 AD. So that would have been approximately 40 years after his death, and 40 years is not a huge time frame. So, yeah, I mean, we're not talking about hundreds of years here. Well, some of the stories and stuff do come out are that old.
Well, like
the earliest known one's 70.
I feel like I'm not sure if people can. I have a discussion with Richard Carrier on my channel, and we talk about the historicity of Jesus, but if I recall that conversation correctly, one of the few whatever the original belief system that shifted to Christianity was, there was a Jewish person, which was one of the only people that aren't biased to that degree that wrote about Jesus. But that, if I'm not mistaken, you can go back onto the stream and check. I'm sure that came a few hundred years or 100 or so years after Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're probably referring to Josephus, I think is the guy's name. But yeah, like I honestly, I don't know. I mean, I would think that like.
So, for example, a lot of people agree today that Santa's real, right? Like,
yeah,
that's like people. A lot of people, yeah, Santa is real.
Absolutely,
100% real. So let's say in a couple of years, like a group of people all agreed this one person's real. How is that substantial evidence just because these people said it and it's carried through time? How is that any kind of proof that these group of people that had a reason to agree upon each other on this prophet? I don't understand how that translates to good proof later on down the line.
I don't think it does.
Well,
that's
I guess it only
put it. Like who invented Santa? how did that become like a modern myth?
So it's just like a group of people can agree on something and propagate it, and that could last throughout the time, like many folk tales have, and we don't use the propagation of the information as enough to justify the validity of it.
I would say that saying that somebody existed is different from confirming that all of their feats that they did over the course of their life are, therefore true as well.
But
so Santa Claus is a good example because Santa Claus is based off of Saint Nicholas, but nobody believes that just because Saint Nicholas existed doesn't mean that therefore a man in a red suit travels around the world giving out presents once a year. So it's the same thing. If somebody named that's actually, this is the hard part too, because his name wouldn't have been Jesus. That wasn't actually. It would have been probably Joshua or something like that. Even if we say that there was this early first century sage that existed who had these heretical views of Judaism and was pushing for a reformation of the Jewish religion. You could say that such a person probably did exist because there was a lot of people at that time that were messiahs. Have you ever seen the movie Life of Brian?
It rings a bell, but I'm not sure. I don't think so.
It's a Monty Python thing that follows Brian, who is a guy that was born on the same day as Jesus, who had his own little cult following around him, and he was kind of a reluctant person because people were pushing him into the life of the Messiah, of being a Messiah, and he's just like, but I'm not. I'm just a regular guy, and
I feel like that. What reason do we have to make the assumption that there was an original sage that was a Jesus, regardless of the name? There was a real physical person, regardless of their capabilities. There was an actual living being person that people are referring to, rather than just creating a character.
That's the point I was saying, is that because we have kind of we have historical accounts at that time that describes that there was actually a lot of people, a lot of self-proclaimed messiahs that were around in that era.
But there is a lot of
search spirituality on YouTube, and you'll see there are a lot of them now.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's any way to prove someone existed so long ago.
Right. So it's So what I'm trying to say is that it's not a miraculous claim for somebody to be out there claiming to be this Messiah figure, because there was a lot of them at that time. Christianity, could have just jumped onto one of these multitude of people and said, yeah, this one is the Messiah, and we're going to follow this one, while we ignore all the other ones, or the other ones are heretics. But like I said,
in the Bible itself, because Moses
absolutely
is the Jesus figure of the Old Testament, and I think, we have to kind of expand our views here. Can you prove that, the original Buddha ever existed? Or I can't think of it in Hinduistic mythology,
Krishna,
whatever their main Christic figure is.
Many.
We can't prove any of them existed.
But
yeah, so
can
but
I?
like I said,
But also we do. I can agree that we have historic, quote unquote, records of Jesus, but it's about how reliable those historic records are as well, and from what position those people making those claims are. Were they supporting a reformation of the Jewish religion, and therefore they had reasons to document this so-called history? There's lots of questions that come into the validity of the recalling of that history, as with a lot of other parts of our history. So that should be valid reason to question that and question the validity.
And
I think that
I agree with that. I agree with that, and that's why I was saying the point was when we say that was somebody a real person, Okay, saying that somebody really existed is a different statement than also confirming that the actions that they took also happened as well. So what's his name? There's a saint. There's a certain saint in the Bible who is credited with slaying a dragon. Now, I don't doubt that this saint existed. He probably absolutely did exist. But me acknowledging that this saint existed does not mean I also believe that he slayed a dragon.
No, but I don't know where the basis is for him existing. Regardless of his miracles, the basis of him existing is where people build upon the Jesus myth, the Jesus character. So if you can
Especially
reasonably argue,
Christianity.
if you can reasonably argue and try to demonstrate that the original person, Jesus as a figure, was never real, then you dispute any further arguments that come from Jesus, regardless of whatever magical stuff people claim he has done. If he never existed in the first place, then that's irrelevant.
Well, I don't know. Again, if you look at a lot of it more symbolically than you do literally, like I'm a student of Gnosticism, and so there's a lot of things in the Bible that are kind of allegorical, especially around Jesus. And I've always kind of thought that it's very weird, right? When Christians talk about how much they love Jesus and they see him as like this physical person that they love, rather than and preach like how important it is to bow down under his authority, right? Because he was a real person, he really existed, he really walked on water, and following him is all it takes. I don't have to change any of my viewpoints or change as a person to actually become better, because the Bible says all I have to do is believe in the Son, right? And you'll be saved or whatever. But I think a very small part of one of the things that like supposedly Jesus preached. So that's very confusing. So I think anti-ordinary, your questions are super valid, like involved in, kind of translating these messages to the people, right? I don't think people always have, the capacity or the mind to really understand. That's why you go to a priest, right? He interprets it for you. And that's always dangerous because, again, these are not people who are lacking any sort of power or influence or capital in our world today.
And that's the problem. That's the problem I see, I think, with religious texts of all form, is that a lot of them, very few of them explicitly say things should be taken literally. And so, because of that, there is no real way, unless it is explicitly stated or implied that this is a lived experience, there's no real way of actually differentiating between what is an analogy, what is a story, what is a moral, and what is true historic retelling.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I agree with like up to a point. Like I think that the only thing that's differing in what we're saying right now is that when Paul wrote up a lot of the stuff that is contained within the New Testament, or like when Christianity as this collection of myths kind of formed, I think that they applied it to an actual figure that did exist at the time, but somebody who obviously didn't do these miracles. I don't think that if a guy named Joshua and Joseph, or whatever the hell his name is, or his name would have been, did exist at that time, I don't think he was curing lepers or curing the blind or bringing people back from the dead. Like that stuff's obviously fake. That stuff is like, I have no good reason to believe that any of that stuff happened. But like building a mythos around somebody who did exist is, I think, an easier feat than just building a mythos around somebody who absolutely did not exist. So while I think that most of the stories and stuff that's accredited to Jesus in the Bible is obviously just pieces of fiction, I would say that those fictions are at least based on somebody who did live in that region that they could use as a reference for this.
And what did I miss the basis for that? What's the basis other than if? Is there a basis for?
Because it's easier to build a mythos around somebody who did exist rather than somebody who trying to create up somebody completely from scratch.
But that's not the only option. The option isn't that Jesus was real or Jesus was created from scratch. Jesus could be an amalgamation of different folklore and stories and throughout history that people put into one because they liked the narrative that painted. So there's more than just Jesus was real, Jesus wasn't real. There's other...
I would put that in the category... I would put that in the category of an actual person. No, like even if I said it's an amalgamation.
An amalgamation of stories and ideas is an actual person.
Oh, if they're based on if the influence from those are based on real people, that's the point I'm saying. Like is that like there is a certain aspect of folklore and so that gets brought into this. Like I said, the question of whether or not Jesus existed or not is different than trying to confirm all the things that this Jesus person did. Yeah, and the claim that a Jewish rabbi that was trying to promote a reformation to Judaism in the first century that was originally caught and crucified by the Romans, that's not a huge claim. Just those facts there, because we know that this stuff happened. We know that there was a lot of messianic figures at that time that had similar faiths to them. So the influence can completely be based off of a real person. And then all the extra stuff that you're saying, of the folklore and stuff, gets packed onto the mythos that they put based around this person.
Doesn't this kind of the same argument be made for God, though? Like, this is everything you can say that's for God.
Yeah, I mean, in the sense that, the God that we understand is also an amalgamation of prior gods.
So you believe God was a real thing, then, by this logic, or am I straw-manning you?
That's straw-manning a little bit there. Because I think that the claim of whether God exists is still a different series of claims compared to whether or not this religion is influenced by a historical person or not.
But your basis for whether you can consider the historical person true is that this idea propagates. No?
Oh no, what I'm playing out is kind of a framework there. Is just basically an inference that if I was to create a religion that I wanted people to follow, that if there already exists a small group of followers that believe in the mythos around this figure who was historical, but the claims that he did are blown out of proportion. Like they don't actually. That they weren't actually done. It would be easier to get followers to that religion based off of a historical figure that you're just kind of making stories up about, rather than just making up somebody from scratch.
Okay, but that's not that. It's still entirely possible people did make something up from scratch, right? I could do that right now to you, probably.
Oh, absolutely. Something being possible is different from whether or not that's the actual case.
So it's equally possible that Jesus was entirely fabricated, then Jesus co-opted a fringe part of a religion.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. I'm not sure how we would put equal probabilities on those. I don't know how we could point to anything there and be therefore equal probabilities. I think that they're both likely scenarios, but I think that one of them has that just in the case of Christianity, I think that it makes a little bit more sense that it's based off of a natural figure. It just in how the religion was able to spread, as well as that the stories of Jesus. Also are blown proportion that there are stories also that follow around with the apostles and stuff. There's also historical evidence of them being caught and executed by the church for their association with such a person.
I feel like it kind of just comes back to I believe this, because it just feels like it.
Well, I mean, this is what we do all the time. Like, yeah, I do believe this because I feel like it's a reasonable position. But that's different from saying that, again, like I'm not saying that anything that's contained in the Bible is true or not. All I'm saying is that the influence from the story was probably a real person.
But what I'm trying to narrow down is for where you find that. Why is it probably a real person? Simply because the idea propagated. Did the internet drop?
No, you're still on. Bart's probably having to deal with the baboons.
Kids, yeah. Running around having philosophical debates while dealing with children can't be easy. That's something I've always been I challenge and I stand against is the historicity of Jesus. It seems like an unreasonable position. It's just compromising to religion for no real justification.
Well, my whole thing is that as written, right? I think it's okay to assume that there was a person or people that story is referencing. But as far as, being the son of God or being God or walking on water or magically creating wine, that's a different thing. But even that, I wouldn't say there's a bunch of evidence even for those people to be around. I do think it's safe to assume.
But that's the thing. It's kind of like I don't know these terms, but it feels like a soft straw man because my position was never. A question was never, is it possible that Jesus done all these things? That's kind of irrelevant to me personally. It was Jesus a real person to base these things upon? And then if you can believe that Jesus is a real thing to base this thing upon, what can you justify to believe that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a line within the Bible that talks about that. If Jesus didn't rise from the dead, then Christianity is false. We're all fools. And I think that just going with that claim is like, okay, well, like even for the sake of argument, if you grant that Jesus was some type of figure, that there's no rational reason or no good evidence to believe that he rose from the dead. So I think that if Christianity puts up their own criteria for falsifying the religion, I don't think that they have like a good grounding to believe that this is the case. But they to the point of whether or not Jesus was a historical figure or whether or not Jesus is, was just made out of whole cloth, or whether or not Jesus was an amalgamation of other first century messiahs that were believed to exist at that time. I think that they're good questions, and I understand completely where you're coming from on that, Demi. I really do. The only thing that I would say was that I think it's likely that he was a real person, but I think that is that doesn't matter as much as actually analyzing what the claims are that are being made, and things like the resurrection, things like the curing the sick, like all that stuff. I think that those things have to be substantiated, and in which case, if you want to describe Jesus as merely the person described in the Bible, well, I don't think that person existed.
Isn't it a presupposition, though, to accept that Jesus existed in the first place?
No, I mean a presupposition is generally a category of belief that exists antecedent from any other belief. So it's like it's uninfluenced by a prior belief. So when we talk about like a presupposition, we're talking about that. Let's say, for example, the reliability of your memory. Okay, the reliability. You believe that your memory is reliable, but how do you what is it that influences that belief? The only thing you could ever really reference would be that you remember that all your beliefs were reliable. In which case, you're just saying that you're just using the very thing you're trying to validate to believe that your memories are reliable. So, in which case, that the reliability of your memory would have to be taken as a presupposition, which is it's a belief that you hold, but you could not justify through an antecedent belief. So like presuppositions are unique in that category. So most people, when they believe that Jesus existed, will be believing this on antecedent evidence or antecedent beliefs that they have about the culture, the piece of the things of the time, the historical writings. So that wouldn't make it a presupposition because it would be influenced by prior, what they'd call or a prior belief.
Okay, so what would you call the assumption? It's just an assumption then. It's fine. What I don't understand why we make that assumption.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that there's good arguments to be made for why some people believe it as an assumption. Like the only one that I brought up, like for why I would take that as an assumption, would be the fact that first century messiahs are not a rarity. That we do have historical evidence of not just Jesus, but a lot of other figures that believe to be these messiahs that existed, prior to Jesus as well as after Jesus as well. Claiming the title. No.
But let's try to apply that same logic to other mythical or legendary characters. To say like King Arthur, just pick one at random that is not as emotionally charged as Jesus. So do we say that King Arthur was based on a real person because we know there was other British kings before and after that time period, so that must mean that King Arthur was based on a real person? That doesn't seem to make sense.
I don't get what you're saying.
I'm gonna step back out because I came in to stir the pot up a little bit, and I'll be back soon.
I would say I don't know why your example would make that not make sense.
Well, did you?
It would be evidence that there would be kings, right?
Right. So do we believe that King Arthur is a historical figure?
Actually, I might be wrong in this, but I think there was a consensus that he was some sort of historical figure. Although I don't think they thought his name was Arthur. No sword in the stone, no Excalibur, any of that stuff. But
yeah, kind of like Jesus, they can't kind of pin him down to any single person. So I think what my point was is that I think it's actually easier to create a character from scratch to support your legend than trying to use a real figure.
I mean, maybe, but Arthur was supposed to bring the whole kingdom of England together, and that person did exist.
No, but I think that's actually the point, is that the story of King Arthur served a purpose in trying to define, this kind of new country and new group of people, just like Jesus is trying to define, this new, kind of philosophy and group of people. So I think it's almost easier to invent that character to create the binding story than it is to use a real person.
I mean, it might be, but like I think that in the case of Christianity, I think that there probably is enough other evidence just for the fact that they could even be prior to the the writings of Jesus there, that we do have record of from the early first century of people that were following this messianic figure, like that stuff we do have. And this isn't even like a huge time frame. Like the other thing that between like Arthur and Jesus and the writings that they have about them. I'm trying to think. Like Arthur was written about in like the 12th century in reference to something that existed probably 500-600 years prior. Well, Jesus is like the first writings of Jesus existed 40 years after he was supposed death. Like, so the time frame of that is a lot closer, a lot more likely to be the case, I would say.
Well, in fact, I think most people think the writings of Paul are the kind of best source for the history of Jesus. That happened closer, and it's a person that most people agree that actually lived and wrote things down that we can actually point at. And I did some reading on that, and it seems like that all the information that we have about Paul comes from one collection of his letters. He sent these letters out to different churches because I guess what he was doing is traveling around starting churches, and then he would send letters back to the churches that he started as they had questions, because he couldn't, it was harder to travel back then, easier to send letters. And so what happened is, people copied those letters, but the source of all the Paul information we had came from one guy that, made this collection of his letters, and then that started getting copied, and that's actually the lineage that we have that goes back. And that was highly redacted, highly edited. And in fact, I think one of his, I can't remember which one of the single letters that is in that collection that, is written down as a single letter today is actually a collection of 4 letters that were edited together. So it seems like even his information was edited far after the source, to match a narrative rather than real letters that he was really writing at that time. So it seems like all the information we have about Christianity, there's that huge 150-year kind of dark period that we don't know what's going on. And then after that time, there's a whole bunch of information that supports the most powerful church at the time and what they were trying to push.
I mean, I would also be interested in like what the standard for historical evidence is on this. Because like I know that there's a lot of things that they've claimed to be mythological that we've had no groundings for, before from a historical viewpoint. But yeah, they've come back afterwards and said, "Oh wait, never mind, we're wrong. This place or this figure actually did exist." Like I think that. I guess like the main reason, like well, one of the reasons why I don't really argue for like this topic too often is that I don't think that it's it really gets you anywhere. Is that like, well, it would be nice to dismiss something like right off the bat, where just like, listen, I can dismiss the claims of Christianity because the idea that the Jesus existed itself is just ridiculous. This figure didn't exist, so therefore any claims that follow is wrong. But I think in the sense of like the discussion over when we're talking about the existence of the God, is that those questions aren't just nested completely within Christianity. So disproving one messianic figure from one particular religion doesn't lead any credence to was it like a deep philosophical question of whether or not a God existed or not, which is why I rarely will kind of argue against a specific religion, but more kind of like philosophical concepts to relate to them. But I mean, like, even if somebody was just determined that such a person did exist, and that the individual claims we can kind of analyze and take a look at, and for the sake of an argument, we can grant, okay, this person did exist, and let's take a look at the claims of what this person did and see whether or not that these things mix in with reality, or what we know about the world. And if that's the case, then I think that the dismissal of their argumentation by saying, well, you still haven't proven that this person exists, is an easy one, but one that's just not charitable for any type of discourse.
Well, and I 100% agree with that, is that talking about the historicity of Jesus has nothing to do with a kind of theological argument or the proof or disproof of God. It's really an exercise in kind of plain history, and how you look at historical figures, religious or not, and how do you try to find evidence for their existence or against their existence. But it really has nothing to do with Christianity, because Christianity can work just as well without a historical Jesus that is totally legendary, can still serve the purpose that Christianity needs it to serve.
Yeah, I agree with that. Anyway, I got to take off because I have children to take care of now. So I will talk to you guys later. Thanks for talking.
Bye.
Damn baboos. Stealing our Sokka.
I think he was the main positive person on that side of the argument, so that kind of killed the argument as well, or the discussion.
I'm trying to think. I think, yeah, I don't know if I could take his whole position. I would say that I wouldn't find it unreasonable if someone believed that there was an historic figure or a multiple historic figures that actually existed. Right? Is there specific evidence for that I would consider credible? Probably not. But I don't see that. I don't see that position as something unlikely.
Yeah, and I think even the people that claim to be strong proponents of the theory, like Richard Carrier, I think only puts himself as like a 70-30 or 75-25, for it. And I think most people fall in the kind of 40 to 60% range. You believe 60% one side or the other, but you have to agree that a lot of the evidence is shaky, and and looks like there's a big hunk of it that was all fabricated. So it's hard to get really confident about either side, which I think makes it a kind of fun historical discussion. If you just look at it that way, is how do you prove any person in history existed as you go back in time? It's much easier for us, let's say, in the last 200, 300 years to kind of pin down people, but the farther you go back, it gets very hard to pin down a person to really exist. Even like the discussions about Aristotle and some of the other guys, where they created by their students, that we do have writings from, or were they a real person?
Yeah,
those discussions are less heated because they don't. If some of these old philosophers existed or not, we kind of like the ideas that are attributed to them, and we discuss those. Not really, and none of them hang their hat on that person really living or not. Like Christianity likes to hang its hat on Jesus being a real person.